you remember the speech that we talked about where Trump spoke at Fort Bragg to soldiers? And there were a few different disturbing characteristics about it. Well, a report came out from military.com, the publication, that gives us more insight into what was happening here and the behind the scenes. So I want to get into that before reading some details like the no fat people detail and the broader danger of what Trump's doing here. Let's remind ourselves of some notable moments from this speech, like the woo response to renaming military installations back to the names of Confederate leaders.
For a little breaking news, we are also going to be restoring the names to Fort Pickett, Fort Hood, Fort Gordon, Fort Rucker, Fort Polk, Fort A.P. Hill, and Fort Robert E. Lee. We won a lot of battles out of those forts.
So there were a few people in the background, I should credit them, like this guy who did not budge, okay? Did not budge, clap, cheer, and clearly wanted it to be on the record that they're not hyping this up. And there were a bunch of times where Trump's attacking Biden, attacking his political opponents. This is necessarily what we try so hard. If you know anyone, or you are yourself someone who's in or was in the military, you know it's so... There's so much energy put into making sure the military is not politicized. And Trump's trying to do the opposite of that. So those moments all were circulating. Those were concerning. And former military members were talking about how it disturbed them. But then you have that. And I was trying to... So I always want to say, I genuinely respect the hell out of the people in that crowd in their service. I can hold that thought and also be absolutely horrified that they would root that on. One veteran wrote into the show and said, I've been in a lot of rallies like that and you can't really hear what's going on that well and you're just cheering when you hear people cheering. Okay, that's maybe a defense for some of them, or they're just cheering no matter what, just to kind of hype Trump up. But we do have information as to why the crowd was what it was here in a second. But as we were exploring on the bonus show, who wants that? Who's cheering this name back to Robert E. Lee? The Confederate, yes. And again, the guy who lost. I know that's kind of a crass way to describe the Civil War, but that bitch is a loser, okay? Is that more crass? I think that's more crass. I think it's more inappropriate. So we're gonna honor him by naming it that. But we did find someone who was hyped up, and it was Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was caught having a Confederate flag cooler during one of her famed workout videos. And my thought, just as we keep going through this, is I think y'all think I'm doing a joke when I say this. As someone who knows so many MAGAs, right, personally, and loves many, family, friends, I want the best for you, as I do for all Americans. I don't want you to be characterized as just Confederate, right? Like that's an oversimplification of politics. Oh, they're just racist, right? Come on, it's not all about that. I've said that in arguments. No, don't just say it's only because of racism. No, don't just say that they wish we could go back and reinstate slavery. Not what they're saying, okay? To be clear, I'm telling you, I'm saying that's not what they're saying. You're missing some of why people get radicalized against Democrats if you give an analysis like that. And I see that, and most people are good. They're just trying to raise their families, they're trying to do what's good. And they get lost and they get misled. And they just can't stand the fact that Kamala Harris turned black. That she did that.
It happened to turn black.
It's just whatever. But you're really hurting your cause. I'm trying to help you, but you're really hurting your cause when you have a Confederate flag cooler, or when you're going, please, all I want for Christmas is Robert E. Lee to be back on the fort. It's not helping your cause. You just seem so regressive. I don't want people to believe you're too far gone, but when you're going, please, the Confederate general, he was a good family man. That was an argument somebody made. And which movement was he leading? We don't agree anymore that it was the traitorous pro-slavery side of that debacle? We don't, I guess, agree on that anymore. So Marjorie was hyped. She posted in all caps, "Thank you, President Trump." I just want wages to increase. I just want a strong border and for Robert E. Lee to be honored again. Is that too much to ask for? And then moments like this where Trump would goad the crowd into booing the fake news, which is just not the role at all of the military. We're not supposed to have this sort of imagery at events like this.
And for a little news for the fake news back there, the fake news, ladies and gentlemen, look at them all. Oh, what I have to put up with. Fake news.
That same guy behind him is just not budging. I really appreciate that. I do. Because the links I've heard from the people in my life who are currently serving the military, the stress they feel about not being out, because I've asked them to come on the show and like talk with me, and the pressure they feel to not go and pontificate on politics, being in the military, and then that's just being spit all over by Trump trying to get this crowd to be as political as possible. Konstantin Toropin said, new, aside from the naked partisanship on display, whose partisanship and why don't they have clothes on? Sorry. I don't know. Dad joke. Why is the partisanship naked? Aside from the naked partisanship on display at yesterday's speech at Fort Bragg, we've learned that troops were screened for loyalty and appearance. The Army also allowed the sale of MAGA merch directly to troops, just breaking with all of the norms. All of them. Which is a really harmful thing about Trump's presence, is he's politicizing everything. And that might sound like a lighter, less damaging part of his legacy, because there's such damaging parts, but it actually is more consequential than you'd think, because a lot of our government and our role on the world stage relies on a loyalty to the country and to the ideals of the country and to an independence of certain institutions and organizations within the government, and a belief that the soldiers' loyalty is to the country and they're at the direction of whoever's in power at that point, not their political agents. And that being completely abstracted, and even just the federal workforce being replaced in so many parts with loyalists, and then the military Trump trying to politicize in this way, it actually does have huge consequences. Military.com has its headlines: Bragg soldiers who cheered Trump's political attacks while in uniform were checked for allegiance and appearance. And one of the quotes as to the appearance was, one unit level message bluntly said, quote, "No fat soldiers," which, as an active duty soldier, how fat are we really talking about? Okay, I don't feel like I've seen even the bigger, and they're all pretty ready to go. Okay, so it's a little bit ridiculous. I do love, like, don't let there be any overweight. Don't let a single overweight person be in that crowd so that the overweight president can speak to them. It's just, It was supposed to be a routine appearance, a visit from the commander-in-chief to rally the troops, boost morale, and celebrate the Army's 250th birthday week, which culminates with a Washington, D.C. parade slated for Saturday. There are reports that it literally might be rained on. The parade might actually be rained on, which would be beautiful, just because Trump's making it his birthday parade. Instead, what unfolded Tuesday at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, bore little resemblance to the customary visit from a president and defense secretary. It becomes less about the service of those people or rallying around the cause of America and more about Trump's ego and Trump's partisanship. And so it goes through some of the parts that were concerning going after his political foes, etc., etc. And then they were having people weeded out if they weren't aligned enough with Trump. If soldiers have political views that are in opposition to the current administration and they don't want to be in the audience when they need to speak with their leadership and get swapped out. Service officials declined to comment, etc. So let's get the pro-Trumpers. Let's have them cheer. Let's just stomp all over the depoliticization of the military. And let's make it a Trump rally. Icky, wicky, licky. Share your thoughts in the comments.